Someone who's interested in or good at customer success is probably very different to business development.
Always amazed me, and we're probably not very good at it ourselves as well, but the amount of customers you come across and you're having a discussion with them and they say they didn't know you did that other thing that you do.
How healthy is your customer relationship? So how are they feeling about you?
And now there's a lot more of a focus, it would appear, on that later end of the journey, which is once somebody's become a customer.
It goes broader than just the actual customer success. I think this is a real way of actually embedding value in the business. So there was a lot of drama the other night at, don't know whether you heard it at your house, the helicopters 2 nights ago.
Maybe I was away.
You might have been midnight, about 12:30.
Right.
Police helicopter circling over our house. I thought they're finally onto me.
House.
They're finally onto me.
Goodness.
So I tried to ignore it, but it went on for about 10 minutes. And so I looked out the window. The police car parked outside.
Outside your house?
Outside, well, just a bit down the road from it. So then we saw the arrest. So we saw them take the suspect, I should say, into custody. So they're obviously on the run, and they used the police helicopter to find them.
Wow, okay. And they happen to be hopping garden fences in your neighbourhood?
Yeah, they were on the road, so I don't know what they were doing. But once they've got the thermal imagery camera on the police helicopter, you haven't really got much chance of it, really. So. Yeah,
that's very clever, isn't it? What a bit of drama that was.
So, yeah, it's all...
So did you come out in your nightie then? And
from a candle.
What, look down the street?
Yeah. What's going on around here?
Excuse me, officer.
Well, I did try and listen out the window to see what was going on. So I got a few snippets.
You mean you didn't have your illegal police band radio tuned in? Because that's what all prepper surely has.
Definitely not. No.
I reckon I've got you there. I bet you've got one. Yeah. Did you have CB back in the day? Or
no, I wasn't. I was never ham radio.
That was before ham radio.
Before.
Yeah, that's been around for a long time.
So my dad was sort of half into it.
Yeah, so that's going to open up our rabbit hole. So let's try and avoid that one. I think maybe we should do what we came here for.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm always interested in your little stories. It keeps the bit interesting.
The levity.
I don't know if the listeners are enjoying it. We'll ask them.
What kind of life does he lead?
Well, let's do a podcast then, shall we? This episode is sponsored by GoCardless. Running a business can mean spending far too much time just trying to get paid. GoCardless automates bank payments so you can collect what you're owed on time without chasing. Over 100,000 businesses worldwide already trust them. Businesses typically spend 59% less time managing payments and get paid 47% faster. Better cash flow, less admin, and more time to grow. If getting paid is taking up more time than it should, fix it with GoCardless. Head to gocardless.com/podcast to claim 90 days fee-free. T's and C's apply. Hello and welcome to another episode of the SME Growth Podcast from Wellmeadow. Welcome back. Every week we try and come up with something useful or interesting for owners and managers of small and medium-sized enterprises. And we're on a run, actually, of Richard and me holding forth with our opinions on things and advice and bits that crop up. I mean, sometimes our topics are informed by something that happens in our clients. Sometimes we read about it in one of the illustrious journals. Sometimes we just have a bit of a brain fart and it thinks, oh, that would be interesting. Let me talk about that.
And sometimes it's advice on getting out of police custody.
Well, you didn't get that part of the story. You didn't say it was you. So today's one is more informed by something we've been working on for a client, and this has been furthering our thoughts. So we'll come back to that and talk a bit more about customer health.
Customer health, we're doing quite a bit of that at the moment.
Yeah, good. So let's orientate ourselves and our listeners. What episode number are we on?
So episode 185. So in time-tested fashion or time...
now you've said it, I can't think of what it said, yes.
Time-honoured.
Time-honoured
fashion.
Yes.
So 182 was, are you putting your prices up? And that actually got quite a lot of response on the YouTube.
On the YouTube.
So are you putting your prices up enough? 183 was business management books that people should read if you're...
That was kind of a prepping for the holiday season, wasn't it?
Yeah,
I wasn't quite so sure about that when we were thinking of the topic, but I listened back to it and I found it quite interesting. It was just a refresher because everyone says, oh, yeah, I've read all those. And you think, well, do you remember them then?
Yeah, exactly.
And some people haven't read them, especially younger
people. Dip back in.
Good.
And then 184 was when we were talking about new rules of customer experience in the age of AI and how AI can enhance or possibly even detract the customer experience.
So
and how
nicely on then.
Customers actually expect a lot more now as well. That was another thing, wasn't it? Customers are now been more attuned to bigger brands, and
well,
Amazon.
That was a theme that we picked up in the SME Squeeze episode as well.
Yeah, so in this episode 185, we're going to look at sort of customer health versus customer success, and maybe get a little bit more practical. So this is something that we're seeing a lot more of a trend around, actually, in terms of the work. A lot of our work's always been focused around sort of the lead gen side of things,
funny,
and sales pipeline.
If you think of the big picture of how there's so many different aspects of the whole go-to-market story, and it's almost as if the trend focuses on one bit and then moves off to another bit. So for a while, it was all about the marketing, lead gen, inbound was the big thing. And then we've focused a lot, and led by our clients, around the sales process itself and conversions and win rates and qualifying and all the pipeline-y stuff. And now there's a lot more of a focus, it would appear, on that later end of the journey, which is once somebody's become a customer.
And maybe that's partly just as our mix of clients shifts to larger companies that have more customers.
Yeah.
So there are, if you're at startup, you haven't really got a lot of customers to cross-sell to or something.
I wonder also if it's a maturity thing.
Yeah.
That when you start out, you think the solution is in, I need more leads. And everyone knows that stat, that it's, 7 times more expensive to get a new customer than sell to an existing one, or whatever the stat is, and everyone's got their own number. But whilst everyone knows that, they find it difficult to really act upon it. They think it's going to be better to spend that 7 times more effort because that new shiny customer is exciting and it's new and it might bring in the untold riches. And you know all your existing customers and you know the limitations and what their budgets are.
Yeah.
Of course, the new one coming in is likely to be similar to what you've already got. So maybe it's that maturity thing. But just talk me through the difference between customer health and customer success, because we often use the word customer success. We've got customer success managers, customer success departments.
Yeah.
What are you talking about here in terms of customer health?
So customer health would be a way of thinking about how healthy is your customer relationship. So how are they feeling about you? Your relationship
with them and anyway, how are they feeling? Yeah. Okay.
And then customer success is more about the things that you do to help improve that relationship.
Yeah.
So health is more a measure of how are they feeling, and customer success is more of the process and the procedures and the things that you do to enable your customers to use your products properly.
So is it more proactive than reactive?
I think so. I think customer service is almost we can get into semantics with this stuff, but customer service is really the reactive one that everybody thinks of, isn't it? Someone calls in, I've got a problem, Whereas customer success, I think, is much more proactive in terms of developing plans to...
Well, it should be. And we talked before, haven't we, about some of the experiences we have as customers, where we have some of our suppliers have customer success people.
Yeah.
And because we don't make too much of a noise, we don't get much attention, really, from the customer success people. So I think this is maybe where your health thing comes in, because it isn't reactive in the same sense that customer service is. If I have ever had a concern or a question, sure enough, it's been dealt with. But on the normal run-of-the-mill, week to week, I don't hear anything from lots of these suppliers. Everything from our outsourced IT company to the people who edit this illustrious podcast or whatever. It'd be interesting now if they're editing this, and they can't give us a call. But customer health would be, I suppose, where they're looking a bit more behind what they see naturally, and they would either proactively ring me up and just say, how's it going? Or maybe they'd look at some other stats on our business.
Well, I think there's another thing with this. That's maybe why it's come up. So AI, I think, has really empowered this, particularly within HubSpot. So I think within HubSpot, the customer service module was really kind of the service module. That's what it was called, wasn't it? It was support tickets and that type of thing. And a lot of businesses don't really even run support tickets. So it's a lot of manufacturing companies, people just pick the phone up and whether there's a problem, right? So it's kind of like that's how that works. Whereas actually now with AI, because you're able to synthesize a lot more data and actually look at these emails coming in, look at the sentiment. Are they annoyed? Are they not? Are they happy? Are they picking? All of that. It's opened it up a lot more now to look at this in a much more, I don't know, probably strategic, easier. You can consolidate a lot more data, and I think that's where we're seeing now a lot more companies going, do you know what? Actually, it's quite a tight market anyway, but also we've got all these customers here. What are we doing with them?
Yeah.
And now we've actually got the tools to be able to say, we can do something about this.
Tremendous asset, isn't it? I'm sure we've talked about this before. It almost needs to go on the balance sheet, but certainly when you're doing due diligence in an M&A process, what is that value you've got in all of those relationships, both the existing and past customers? And I'm sure that's often undervalued. Yeah. People don't realise that actually we could pick up the phone to the chief exec of a number of firms that other companies would give the right answer to do. And they'd say, oh, hi Dave, how you doing? Yeah, it's been a while. That is incredibly, and yet we don't use that.
But it's how do you quantify it, isn't it? So I think this is where I think there's a focus often on the sales pipeline, because that's very immediate, isn't it? Like without the sales, like it's going to stop. Now, some of those sales may well be from your existing customers. That's kind of.
Maybe that's the difference between urgent and important. Sales is urgent, isn't it? Whereas customer health, that relationship management is more important.
But I wonder how many companies are tracking at that sales pipeline stage. Is this existing customer business? Is this not
we do that,
new logo? We do that. We use 6-box model to do it. And it's actually quite interesting when you actually sit and look at it and then look at your conversion rates between all of the different inbound, outbound.
Well, we've said before that one of the reasons you talked about the service module there not being so much used in manufacturing is that quite often manufacturing companies have got a very high percentage of repeat business. And they may even have a stable of not that many companies that they tend to do work for very regularly. And of course, if they end up with a revenue dependence and one of those disappears, then we've got examples before. I remember Glenn Aston in years ago came on to our podcast and talked about that exact thing. So you're right, they don't tend to think the way they should, I think, in separating out where's that source of work, how many of those new leads.
And then I think companies. I think it probably does as well take a little bit of effort. I mean, like say everyone knows you've got to have sales, right? You've got to have a sales team. That's just kind of sort of axiomatic of having a business, isn't it? You've got to get work in. But this stuff takes a little bit more thought, I think, and it's one of those things that you can, in a way, probably get away with. And, you shouldn't, I don't think, but I'm saying you can. Like, a lot of companies don't do customer health or customer success, and yet they carry on being successful businesses. And then, maybe but the point of this, I think, is to look at it and say, and I think as well, probably in a changing landscape where it's probably now easier to change supplier than it's ever been, because you can just get AI to go and, here's my criteria, go and find me someone else that can do this. Yeah. Whereas before it would have been a bit more difficult.
Even responding to that, where you get the long PQQ questionnaires and
just chuck it in 5 star. So the cost of switching is easier or cheaper. So I think actually looking after customers now is becoming much more of a thing, and as I say, the tools are there. But I think as well, when you start actually looking at the numbers, it can actually, just example, say you've got a £5,000 average, 2 companies, £5,000 average price for whatever service it is. Yeah. You've got 100 companies each, so that's £500,000 turnover a year. Yeah. Well, if one just focuses
on 5,000 a year is the income.
5,000 a year, say average. Yeah.
Okay.
So if you lost 20 of those every year, now you're losing 100 grand of revenue. So you've got to find 100 grand of 100 grand of sales there just to stand still.
And do you know what? Just to pause on that thought for a minute, not many companies could quote to you what their churn rate is. Yeah. Because it's silent, isn't it? It's measuring something that hasn't happened. Yeah. And we've set up workflows before in HubSpot which try to alert you to say, well, this was a customer that used to order every, whatever, a year, 6 months, 3 months, and they've stopped. But without some automated method, it's interesting how it sort of creeps in and you think, where did that climb?
I think as well, if you're growing, then that can really mask a churn rate.
True, yeah. And because it's not shown in your revenue.
Because it's not shown. So it's like, okay, well, last year we did 5 million, this year we've done 6 million. And I had this conversation last week with a company. Right. And I said, well, what's your churn rate? Yeah. Because, you're sitting here going, we need another £1 million. And I was like, well, if your churn rate's 20%, you need another 1.5 million, maybe 2 million, just to...
Just another story on that. I was talking to a new MD that's just been in post less than 2 weeks, a couple of days ago, in terms of what he's found out in the first 2 weeks. And he said the first 2 things I look at in any company, go in first and look at run rate. What is the run rate? Second one is churn. So it's right up there. We're talking about churn just sort of casually there as something that people don't look after. That's in his playbook. Yeah. The second thing he looks like after the run rate. That's really important.
So if you then think about it in terms of that, so you've quantified, okay, what your churn rate is. So we've got 100K there that we're going to lose every year. So we've got to get another 100K just to stand still. Okay, well, what if you were able to say, reduce the churn rate from 20% to 10%? So there you've got your
You're always going to lose some, right? Because they don't have a need anymore, or they've gone out of business.
So if you can reduce that down, reduce your churn rate, so that's another 50k in our example that you've got, then you say, okay, well, now we're looking at, what are the gaps? Where's the upsell, cross-sell opportunities? But proactively doing that with it being someone's job, then let's say there's, whatever, you can put whatever number on you want. But if you said, another 50k there of cross-sell, upsell opportunity, and then also referrals, which we've done a podcast episode on, which I should have probably looked up, but there's a whole episode around referrals that we've done in the 6-box model. But you start asking people, well, could you refer someone else if you've got a good service?
It's always amazed me, and we're probably not very good at it ourselves as well, but the amount of customers you come across and you're having a discussion with them and they say they didn't know you did that other thing that you do. That's what you're talking about, isn't it? This gap analysis. And that it's just on the table. You've already got a relationship, you've already on the supplier database, you've qualified all the thing, you've got your account set up, the payments, all the hard work's been done. All you got to do is tell someone different in the organization, sometimes it's even the same person, did you realize we also did this? And you think, surely you know that. It's all over our website, we talk about it all the time. But do you? Have you talked about it before, or do you just deliver the service?
So if you could reduce your churn rate to say from 20 to 10, so in our example, that gives you 50k. If you say, okay, we're going to take 20 of those customers, and upsell them something at 2.5k each or something, you've got another 50k there. You get, 5 companies referred into you. There's another 25k.
We've talked about referrals before,
you got 125k there from just doing what you should be doing anyway, but maybe in a more structured way. And then on top of that, you're going to get the lead gen that company A, who's not doing any of this, who's just churned 20% and now has to make another 100k just to get back to the 5. You're still doing your lead gen activity. So now you're up to 6.5, 7, 7.5, 750.
You're saying really that there's an easier bit of growth that people are looking over because it's not seen to be, I don't think, as sexy or as exciting as winning the new scalp.
And so I think if you start putting the numbers on it and start looking and saying, well, actually, do we need to invest in people to do this? Do we need to invest in systems to do this? And actually now those systems, particularly in HubSpot, are getting a lot better. Then it's definitely worth thinking about as part of that mix. As it's not, I think sometimes it's thought as the afterthought of we just got to keep putting more sales in.
Well, especially if your sales team and your marketing support for them is very busy already prospecting and dealing with existing inquiries, then the idea of asking them to, oh, by the way, go through all of our customers, maybe hundreds, do the 80-20 rule, and for the big ones, do this analysis. Where are the gaps, and are they healthy? And that's actually seen to be quite a bit of work. And what you're saying is actually that's less of a burden these days because it's so.
And I think it's different in its horses for courses, isn't it? I think someone who's interested in or good at customer success is probably very different to business development.
Yeah, sure.
Different mindset, different objectives.
I'm not even sure if customer success is the same skill set as key account management. So business development, key account management is often the split within the sales team. Customer success isn't quite the same as key account, is it? That's probably more senior and it's looking after a bit more of the commercials. Whereas customer success is probably the users within the account rather than necessarily the decision makers. Are you making good use of our products, and how can we help you train and get more from it? And did you realize we did these other things? It's more of an educational supporting role, whereas key account is more relationship and just keeping in touch. That's probably disservice to a lot of the key account managers out there, but it's a different function.
And it's definitely, but it's one of those where I think sometimes customer success does land on sales in smaller organizations, and I think that's you've got to switch your hats.
Well, it just gets deprioritized.
Yeah. So worth thinking about. So then thinking about things like, well, what should you actually measure? So we could go on, forever on these, but things like clearly the commercials, how much they're spending. Potentially margin if you've got that, and maybe
frequency of spend. We talked earlier, if they always buy every 3 months and then it's been 6 months since the last one.
Other than that, things.
If you have renewal dates, then I guess whether they renew.
Things like relationship. So who are you speaking to? What's the relational sort of depth within the organization? So we've talked about this before.
Stakeholder mapping.
Now,
isn't there a new thing in HubSpot about that, which is a reinvention of a third-party tool?
But
what do they call that?
It was called
Buying
Org
Groups,
Chart.
wasn't it?
It's called Buying Groups now. So it's in beta, so you can go and find that if you're in HubSpot. But that's very good because it allows you to kind of map the organization and the roles, so who the decision makers, who's buying, who's an influencer, champion, etc. And then you can actually overlay on that a heat map of your conversations and things like that. So,
I wonder if
they've still got that.
Yeah, great. It's really eye candy stuff, but it's useful, isn't it?
Yeah.
You see, right
So
now,
you
let's
can see.
look at how much of our marketing and or sales communications have been received and consumed by everybody.
But we had similar things as well on the relationship side. If you've got key accounts where you've only got 1 or 2 contacts in them, but what happens if they leave or change jobs or change companies?
Very risky.
Very risky. So what should your relational depth look like in terms of how many people per account and all that type of thing?
And for a smaller firm, you're still looking for those heads of, but if you imagine it's slightly bigger with different departments, those other departments may not know about you at all. In a different building or even just in a different office. They don't realize that next door we're heroes and we're doing loads of stuff, but they never heard of us.
So things like the relationship, then product or service adoption, are they using what you're providing them?
Yeah.
So I guess software, this is, you see this a lot with HubSpot. Are they use this tool, this tool, this tool?
Well, there are a lot of aren't they? Usage
metrics, but things like service. So have you got tickets open? How quickly are they resolved? All that type of thing. And then probably a little bit harder to get maybe, but worthwhile looking at things like, what are the growth plans? Are they looking to invest? Are they looking to expand?
We say harder, and this is where perhaps there is the crossover between the key account management and customer success. But if you're going in there maintaining the relationship, that key account manager should be asking, what is your investment cycle? How often are you planning on replacing it? When do you do your budgets even through the year? When is the point I should be asking you, are we in your budgets for next year? Or have you got any plans? Or if you were to open a new factory, where blah, blah, blah. So it's showing that level of interest rather than the backwards looking, has everything gone okay?
And if you can't get that information, then maybe you're talking to the wrong person as well, isn't it? So it's, those sorts of things. How can you...
Or if they've got no growth plans, then maybe they're not a target account anymore or a key account.
So they're the things that you should measure. So then if you wanted to then make this practical, clearly we're going to use HubSpot as an example, but you can use CRM of your choice.
Yeah, others
or
are available.
Spreadsheet of your choice. But, things like health score, trends, all of these things you can build out.
So you come up with a health score as a composite of all those other things?
Yeah, so HubSpot does have a customer health score that it's inbuilt, and then you can customize that.
And that's based on all sorts of email traffic, meetings. It's the content as well as the number of...
Yeah, you can configure it in a number of different ways depending on, and you can set custom properties up and things like that.
We've used it before the HubSpot standard one came out. We used a sort of more of a homegrown one. Didn't we? Say, right, give me your assessment of the health of this customer based on all the comms and meetings that have happened. And they've now built that in. So clearly they must have been listening to our podcast.
Exactly. And then there's some other things that we could talk about as well, but if you want to hear about those, give us a call.
Oh, I like it.
Well,
it's a little bit.
I'm not going to give away. Not going to give away the juice.
So all these notes on here should have confidential stamps all over them. Yeah.
So but there's lots of different. People can clearly come up with their own things that they want to measure, but all of those things above. So like the commercials, the relationships, usage of products or services. Are there any gaps? Are there any cross-sell, upsell opportunities? All of that. So and it sounds easier than it is. And I know this is, it's always easy to say, well, you should just measure all those things. Well, okay, how do you measure them and all that? Yeah. So building that out, we're doing a lot of that at the moment, a little advert. But then how do you review it? How do you take that data and do something meaningful with it? So that's around putting the actual customer success reviews in. And then have you got the right people and the right cadence and the right information? And I think this is where it is key to try and, something like HubSpot where you can get that information, use the AI tool, maybe use some of the agents to actually pull together all of the information so that you can do that review quickly. Because, particularly if you think, well, you've got a top, say 100 customers, that won't be uncommon for a lot of companies. So if you want to do a half-hour review of those, and maybe you've got 2 or 3 people in each review, bit of prep time, probably looking at 150 to 200 hours a month. Well, is that worth it? Well, you could start looking at the return on investment calculation for that, because you could very easily cost up the time.
In a bigger organization. Or maybe do it every 2 months.
But then you're looking at, now we've got to really start tracking the revenue that we're getting from from our existing customers.
Yeah.
So that we can say, okay, well, our activity through customer success has now generated X amount of sales
Have we increased the repeat purchase or the spread, the share of wallet?
And is that different to the other accounts where we're not doing so much intensive customer success, and are they just going to do it anyway and we're wasting our time, type of thing? So
with that time, and some of them will be with the customers, right? And that's where you're going in and you're talking to them. A lot of people would say that's hard to get their attention. But if you're doing this well, they would want that meeting. Yeah. Because you're going in solving more problems for them that they've got that they didn't realize you could solve.
Yeah.
So you then become a real ally rather than some salesman knocking on the door saying, can you buy this thing?
Yeah.
It's more, what do you need?
Well, I think it's a way of really bringing together a lot of interesting things within your organization. So even to come up with those list of things where what are the problems we could solve, you've got to probably get your senior people together and say, how would you do this? How would you solve this? How would you do this? Yeah. Systemize that in some way, or at least collect the knowledge, put it in a knowledge vault or something, that then your key account managers or your customer success people can actually draw on that and say, I can see this problem. We could solve it this way or this way or this way. Yeah. So it's a very, we talked before about, or we've been involved in projects where it's trying to consolidate all that knowledge in the business into something so that when somebody leaves, you've still got all that information around.
For that chemical plant, didn't we?
So it goes broader than just the actual customer success. I think this is a real way of actually embedding value in the business. And so then, so you've got your numbers, you've done your review. Maybe there's an issue, or maybe there's something really positive. So some sort of escalation up the chain. Does it need to go to the commercial director? That type of thing. Does it need to go to the board?
The point of that is positive and negative, right? Yeah. You don't just escalate like we all do a problem when you don't think you can deal with it, but if you've identified an opportunity as well, escalate that too.
So there's lots more in all this, looking at.
It's a whole interesting area, isn't it? Just to take that focus away from the sales pipeline, which is where everybody naturally focuses, into that bit after, and don't just treat that as almost a poor relation of sales. The key account management or the customer success is often just seen as the complaints department. It's not. This is your real big opportunity. That's your point, isn't it?
And I think as well from a business valuation point of view, if you can actually show these numbers that when we win a customer, we keep them for 5 years. Your churn rate,
that's a question you'll be asked, won't it, straight away? And have you done stuff to minimize that?
And what's your lifetime value and where are the opportunities and all of those things. So I think it's a really interesting, we've got a number of projects on the go at the moment along these lines, and they're quite interesting projects to.
Well, it happens to come alongside the time that there's some extra functionality in HubSpot that we can use to make this a lot easier. Otherwise, it was always a little bit of a slog in the past. But what with the buyer groups and the customer health scores and so on, we can leverage some of those things. Yeah. Very good.
Stand by your beds, or no, not stand by your beds. That's the wrong metaphor, isn't it? Stand by.
Stand by whatever you're standing by.
Stand by whatever you're standing by.
Yeah.
And we can maybe talk about some of the results of this in a couple of months' time.
Okay, good. Well, if anybody's got any feedback on that or questions, then it'd be good to hear from them and see whether that message is resonating, whether that seems to be something that people would be more interested in.
Maybe we could even do a round table. I went on a round table recently.
You did go on a round table. You told me about it.
It was very good, actually.
Was it actually a round table?
Well,
it was the online version.
It's an online version of a round table. But yeah, maybe if people are interested, customer success round table.
Round table.
Coming to a Zoom meeting near you soon.
Very good. We could even do a physical one.
We could do.
Maybe not round table. Okay, thanks, Rich.
No worries.
Very good. That was episode 1085. Thank you, and thank you for listening as well. Hopefully that's been useful or interesting, which is what we're trying to do. And if you think someone else might be interested in that or find it useful, then please let them know. And in the meantime, good luck with your business.